Just before the episode, I would like to thank all our Patreon members. You guys, the support means the world to me and helps keep this podcast going. And if you haven't signed up for Patreon yet, just so you know, Lindsay from formerly 33% Pulp and I cover a lot of different true crime and history media like The Keepers and the Paradise Lost series, as well as covering some topics that you guys probably wouldn't hear about otherwise. You know, we've covered the I Knew of Japan, we've covered Bernard Pernat, lots of different cases, and as well as some surprise and different kinds of content such as crazy sci-fi movies comes up as well. So love if you would check it out. Thank you guys for all the support and allowing me to keep doing this for the past few years. So thank you. And now on to the episode. Let's talk about Ukraine.
Yes. They only have one hairstyle. I'll admit, I don't know where the Ukraine is. I know it's vaguely near that space between China and England, right?
Yes.
You draw a line from China to England, you might hit it at some point, right?
So, Mike, Mike's back from #cult, obviously, because we've gone chaotic right away. Mm-hmm. I'm here for it.
Yeah. I did pitch my episode of Rocko's Modern Life. Apparently it's not what this podcast is about.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, the conversation off mic was hurtful, and frankly, watch your mouth when you're talking about 90s Nickelodeon. So.
Oh, I love 90s Nickelodeon TV.
Yeah, you say that now on mic. You should have heard the mouth on her before we got on the air.
You know that everyone's going to be wondering because I don't give a fuck what I say on here, so it's like, what did I say off mic?
I know, it's great. It's great. I like doing bits on nonfiction shows because people really buy into the. Like, if we had committed to that, they'd be like, "Wow, they must have really had a fight about Rocko's Modern Life." Like, oh my god, that's so tense. They just met.
We had a very intense debate about other things before we started recording again, and it mainly about Cleveland cities, and it's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. Go watch my video on Instagram about Ohio. Moved to Ohio, not a huge fan already.
You picked the worst time to move to because you're going to get winter in Cleveland, which is just
I like
depressing.
winter. I'm more upset about the bugs you don't know about.
The midges?
Yeah. Does everybody know this? No. Nobody knows it. You guys try and pretend like Ohio's normal, except for our annual swarm. Yeah. Sure, it's a normal state, except for the biblical plague that happens once a year. No. We're cool. We're chill. Don't ignore all of the bugs. To the point where people have to tell you if you're going to move near a lake, they're like, you will be swarmed with bugs. You know that, right? And you think like, oh, like cicadas, like once every 25 years. They're like, no, just all the time.
So I worked as a lifeguard at a pool by the lake, and my parents at that point, we had moved farther away from the lake, so it wasn't a problem for us anymore. Like, we didn't have to power wash our house every couple weeks during the summer.
Do you hear that, people? This is how they get away with it in Ohio. We don't have to power wash the bug carcasses from our house every couple weeks. Now, mind you, she said power wash every couple weeks, meaning there's bugs on there all the time, just not enough to warrant the mechanical device so intense. It's not just called regular washing. They've made it clear that it's for power and bug carcasses. Like, it's something out of H.P. Lovecraft with just as much racism because it's Ohio. So,
well, you're in Cleveland, so yeah. No, you get the Eastern European racism, which is a different type of weird racism.
Guess what? I'm from the East Coast. It's all just racism to me. So,
but no, midges they're also called Canadian soldier.
Course.
And they literally live for like, of
course, because Ohio manages to be the only country in the world xenophobic of Canada. Good job, Ohio. Good job.
It's really just Cleveland. This is just a Cleveland thing, I think. But they swarm every summer over the lake, and they don't do anything besides annoy the crap out of you, which is why I don't think anybody talks about it, because we're just all like, why do you think people from Cleveland are so annoyed all the time? Because we don't talk about it, and we just roll.
Here's the two things I know about Cleveland. One, the bugs, and two, that comic artist who was also famous for being miserable. What's his name? Oh man, why am I blanking on his name? Anyway, I'll think of it later.
And our river caught on a bunch.
We
made a beer out of it. It's fine. That's how we go.
So anyway, a place slightly better than Ohio. Ukraine.
So the Ukraine we've already covered the whole podcast. I know you guys didn't like it because it's a genocide, and I probably shouldn't have put that in the title, and I tricked you. But We're not talking about genocide this time. We're talking about the Orange Revolution. So Ukraine is in the steppe, so just south of Russia, and it's known as the breadbasket of the steppe. Fun facts.
Question: why is it the? They don't do that for any other country.
There is a lot of debates about that,
Okay.
and I think it's a language thing and a delineating themselves from Russia thing,
Okay,
because they have a lot of issues with Russia.
got it. Can we start going by the Cleveland?
Have you not heard of the Ohio State University? They trademarked it. They tried to trademark the in like Ohio University and then tried to sue other Ohio universities.
Yeah, let's not even get into University of Miami. Bad job, Ohio. Not even close. No one else has done that. Okay, sorry, the Ukraine.
Ukraine. So we're going to start December 1st, 1991, when Ukraine votes for independence. Again, dissolution of the Soviet Union. They elect Leonid Krakovich. Again, I'm sorry, I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian. You're welcome for these as president. And Ukraine had the second largest population and economy of all of the 15 Soviet republics. So for Russia to lose this is a big hit. We know that in February 1994, they joined NATO. NATO's Partnership for Peace, which, remember, NATO was created to go against the Soviet bloc. So this is great for a lot of Russians, new Russian state. They're like, our former colonies, quote unquote, are joining NATO.
Not a great
And this,
Yeah. Well, all I've got to say about this is I still knew none of this about the Ukraine.
education,
I
man.
know.
And so this is, the Partnership of Peace is a collaborative arrangement open to all non-NATO European countries and post-Soviet states, so anybody could join it. Ukraine and Hungary are the 5th and 6th members of the partnership. Russia would become a partnership later, so they could do like joint activities like military exercises until 2014 when NATO would formally suspend ties with Russia. We see that becoming a big deal. We have in 94 as well, Kuchma becomes president. He was the former prime minister, also named Leonid. It's a common name. Wait till we get to the actual election and revolution we're talking about. So he defeated President Leonid Kravchuk, and
You are landing them. Keep going.
I'm just going with confidence.
Yeah.
And this is the first time an incumbent had been defeated in a presidential election in a former Soviet republic, which is pretty significant for these republics. But Kuchma's presidency is really marked by slow growth, economic crisis, rampant corruption. They ratified their new constitution in 1996, and it technically, I'm going to say technically, has separations of powers, like, we do, technically. But the president still holds significant sway. He can dismiss the prime minister, rescind acts of the cabinet, minor things.
I always find this stuff fascinating because, like, I speak Chinese, the language itself, and it's so interesting because one of the things you'll hear a lot when people talk about America is they'll be like, well, America's a relatively new country. And it's like when you look at the history of, like, especially Russia and China, you're like, actually, we're like one of the oldest countries. Most countries in their like long history have reorganized and like totally dissolved and come back. Like we're one of the few countries that has like kept the same organization for like 200 plus years. Like that doesn't happen in the modern age. Cause like 91, this is like recent that these things became like new countries and like are totally like reformed. So it's always weird when people say, I think they just mean it in terms of like cultural hats and music, dance like that. Like, oh, we're a new country. We're not an old country. Yeah, but
we're a teenage country, really. If you look at it, we're a teenage country because if you compare it to like Europe, which we can't count France, who knows?
But they've all had restructurings. Like all of those countries just restructure constantly. We're like one of the few countries that is still hanging on to our same governmental structure. Like we haven't been like totally just dissolved and started again, you know?
That is amazing to think about, yeah, that we haven't said, fuck it, let's try something else.
Which makes us an old country. It makes us a really old country comparatively. Those countries have just like existed over time, but it's not the same country. Like Mongolia, I don't know if anybody knows this, like is not run by Attila the Hun. Like it's a different situation there. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like Mongolia isn't older than America. it's significantly newer than America because they restructure and do all these different stuff all the time. It's a weird historical thing that I think gets like pushed out there, that we're a young country because we don't have like a traditional food or anything that like predates
We do. We just killed it all.
Yeah, that's true too.
So the good thing the Constitution guaranteed was free speech, private property, and recognized Ukrainian as the sole state language, which the Russian and Soviet state attempted and very successfully tried to get rid of the Ukrainian language in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. So we also see in April 2001, the Prime Minister Yushchenko was ousted amidst a reform movement. He got
now, reform movement was English. You did great on Yushchenko, and then you lost him.
Question the reform movement.
you were like,
I was still debating it. So he got a no confidence motion from Parliament, and he stepped down. But the vote was carried out by allies of Kuchma, the president, and everybody was kind of shocked when he had nominated Yushchenko to be prime minister in 1999. So they were all like, this isn't like that Cardi B TikTok, like, this is weird. This is suspicious.
Now, the only thing I know vote of no confidence from is Attack of the Clones with Jar Jar Binks.
I have blacked out.
Those are good movies. Everyone calm down.
So Yushchenko and his deputy, Yulia Tymoshchuk.
You nailed it.
No, I didn't.
If you're listening, Yulia, let us.
Tymoshchuk. They were really pushing through energy sector reforms, which if you know about that region and Russia's post-Soviet things, this made them very unpopular with Kuchma's oligarch supporters, because like Russia and Ukraine and a lot of these former Soviet regions have their societies really built on oligarchs. I'm not saying the U.S. isn't also built on oligarch, but we're not talking
oligarch, based on ogre. Very different to clarify.
Which I don't think had come out at this, but okay.
It had not yet. But the spirit of get out of my swamp was there.
Yes. So right as this is happening, we have the Gongdazi's assassination and the Kuchmagate crisis. So Georgy Gonzalez, who was a Ukrainian journalist and the founder of Ukrainsky Prava, which is an internet newspaper that was prominent for publishing about corruption and unethical conduct of politicians, Ukrainian politicians. He was kidnapped and murdered in 2000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's after. What year are we up to now in this happening?
We're in 2000. So
okay.
So this is before Yushchenko gets ousted. But this is like happening alongside of them trying to do all these.
Got it.
No one personally said that Kuchma murdered him. Not going there, but like there were some hints, nudges that he had ordered it.
Now are we in danger?
That's why I said hint, nudge. It's allegedly.
It's not allegedly dead. Are we in danger? Should we be worried?
No.
Okay.
This is far enough away. We're not threatening Putin. We're good.
Is it though? Because is it though? Because 2000 is like Spider-Man 1, right? That's not that far off, you know?
So this murder inspires the movement against Kuchma, which will continue to go into the Orange Revolution 4 years later, on top of the fact that Yushchenko got ousted, and his name is Victor. So, and we're gonna have this is the battle of the two Victors. It's with similar names.
What was the other name?
I'm gonna be sorry.
Leopold. What was the other?
Leopold. The first two presidents were Leonid.
Leonid.
So after his first two terms as president, the cassette schedule, Kuchma was like, yeah, I'm not gonna run in 2004. He goes, I'm gonna put my new prime minister, Viktor Yanukovych, go again, and like Viktor Yushchenko. So we have the two Victor Yanukovych and Viktor Yushchenko running against each other.
It's gonna get tough.
Yeah. So why did the Orange Revolution happen? Because this is kind of, a predecessor to what happened in 2011 in Ukraine with the Soviets invading, or I shouldn't say Soviets, the Russians invading. But not invading, because Putin said they weren't there, but they were there.
I was laughing at the idea that like we still have problems, like that the year was like, oh wait, it's not the Soviet Union. That's pretty like funny to me that happened. So
considering I wasn't alive at any point during the Soviet Union,
or so I say.
Who's to say? It's really the regime before that created this path. It was based on a, quote, competitive authoritarian regime, end quote. It's fine. They were like, it's a hybrid. It's, authoritarian, but we're also going to let democracy and a market economy come up, because that works.
So, yeah, that's dictatorship. What's the idea?
It's a dictatorship, but they allow capitalism. Yeah, but they fake it. But there was widespread election fraud. There was what?
Oh, that's better. Oh, okay. It's fake. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, now I enjoy. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so they had widespread election fraud, even as the Ukrainian people wanted a more pluralistic government. They wanted more of a democracy or open government.
Of course they do. But it's authoritarian. I thought we all agreed we would be authoritarian. Of course you want stuff that we don't want, but that's not the deal. What happened? You guys signed the contract. It's authoritarian.
You didn't agree? You didn't know you agreed to this?
Yeah. Guys, no,
sorry.
you agreed to be for me to be the authority. So you can't ask for stuff. Guys,
it was in
you
the
should have
terms
said
and conditions
something.
on that iTunes thing.
You gotta agree to we're using cookies. We've already used cookies, but somehow you clicking OK is nonsense. Okay.
So Kuchma had the cassette scandal, and this really showed, the corruption. And so the people are starting to create a social reform movement, and they really are just kind of not, they're like, fuck the ruling elite in class. Like, our president doesn't care. Our president's scandalous. And Kuchma actually lost, because of the scandal, lost a lot of his supporters, high-ranking supporters in the government. And interestingly, a lot of his officials went to support Yushchenko's campaigns and his general. And Yushchenko really had kind of become this figure that this reform movement's getting pulled around. He was really charismatic. He didn't people he's not corrupt. Let me tell you, he has his issues. Later on, there's issues that happen, and he put himself on the same level as his constituents, presented non-Soviet ideas. He's like, I want to do things that aren't the Soviet way, aren't the old way. And Ukraine's youth came out to vote heavily in the 2004 presidential election. They came of age to this negativity of Kuchma-gate. They had very skewed views of him and his ability, and because you have to remember, Yushchenko was handpicked by Kuchma, but everybody was like, we don't like him.
Guy, please just be nice at the cock. That's all we're asking.
But it showed a lot of they showed a lot of pride in being Ukrainian and in their nation. They wanted to make it better. Well, we know starting in late 2002, Viktor Yushchenko led the Our Ukraine Party, Oleg Morov, who led the Socialist Party of Ukraine, Petro Saimovka, who led the Communist Party of Ukraine, and Yulia Tymoshenko had her own bloc, built together a statement saying they were working on the beginnings of a state revolution in Ukraine. So this is a left alliance. Saimovkov opposed an idea of putting a single candidate forward for the election, but they agreed to do so. They would actually remain allies until 2006, which for political allies and coalitions, good for them.
What is it, 2 years?
They got 4.
4.
They got 4 years. That's pretty solid in political terms.
So this is 2002.
We're in the 2004 election. They're working in 2002. They're building this, and we see in July 2004, Our Ukraine and Julia Tymoshenko bloc worked together to establish the Forces of the People, which was a coalition which aimed to stop, quote, the destructive process that has, as a result of the incumbent authorities, become a characteristic of for Ukraine, end quote. So they were really pushing that President Leonid Kuchma and Prime Minister Viktor Yankovic were the incumbent authorities in Ukraine.
So I know nothing about Ukrainian history. I'm trying to keep up with the timeline. I am doing it through looking up movies. So this year in America, A Shark Tale, The Girl Next Door, The Day After Tomorrow, Tobey Maguire, and The Polar Express. So that's how I'm keeping track of all of this.
So we were very happy at that time is what you're telling me.
Troy, yeah, things are good.
So, and meanwhile, Ukraine is going through this very critical election to see if they can peacefully transition power.
We were going through stuff too. 50 First Dates came out this year. Okay, there was hard times in America.
I did not think that. God, I feel because I remember that coming out.
How about 13 Going on 30 came out that year too.
Oh my God. So this pact that they had built had Yushchenko promising to nominate Tymoshenko. I feel like I'm saying it different each time.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay.
Tymoshenko as prime minister. So Yulia would become prime minister if Yushchenko won the election. So we have the campaign, which is crazy. It goes crazy. So you have Yankovic, who is supported by the incumbent, and Yushchenko, who, like, both of them have experience in the modern Ukrainian government. Both of them have served in parliament. Both of them have been in, like, the federal branch of government. Like, they're not outsiders at all. Well, the Yankovic team and the outgoing administration really worked to use their control of the government and state apparatus to intimidate Yushchenko and his supporters. Interestingly, September 2004, Yushchenko suffered dioxin poisoning under mysterious circumstances.
What's dioxin? Dioxide or dioxin?
Dioxin.
Dioxin. Oh, man, I'm going to look it up. In the meantime, I'll also look up movies that happened in 2005. Dioxin. Hold on. It's toxic shit. Should have fucking known that.
It's a aromatic hydrocarbon compound.
Oh, of course. Don't say anything else. I know it exactly.
It's a byproduct of herbicides and disinfectants and other agents.
Gross.
So it's basically poison. He was poisoned by the specific dioxin, and he survived and returned to the campaign trail. And there's, like, pictures of him. He, like, I think he almost died. Like, his face, like, you could tell, like, the differences, and you're just like, shit.
And what year was that? And that was 2005?
2004.
Still
like, this is during the presidential election.
Okay. Still, yeah.
Like, they're campaigning to be president, and he gets poisoned on the trail.
Good. Cool.
Yeah. His face is severely disfigured, and it really undermined his health as well. So throughout the whole election, they're neck and neck. They filled the first round of votes Halloween 2004, and Yankovic won 39.2% of it, and Yushchenko won 39.87%. It's like of the votes cast, but since they didn't win more than 50%, they have to do a runoff. So when this happened, Olisar Morris threw his support behind Yushchenko, and then we have the Progressive Party Natalia Viterenkov, who got almost 1.5% of the vote. She goes, I'm going to support Yankovic, and he also hoped to get Petro Samevenko's endorsement, but he didn't get it. So, like, people who were running, they're like, okay, I'm supporting this person, they're going between the two. But there seemed to be many complaints coming out regarding voting irregularities in favor of Yankovic during the first round of voting. So they're like, you guys are doing shady shit.
I remember thinking at the time, what was happening. That Taxi came out in October with Queen Fallon. It was getting made fun of, man. You needed to. Okay, buddy, I thought they had good chemistry on screen. That's what when this was I remember not hearing about and saying, what do I think about Taxi, Jimmy?
Which is sad that this wasn't getting the attention.
Well, but more.
It's America. We're very selfish.
Look, people not getting rights, unfair election, or Queen Latifah not really getting a fair shot. I feel like you're kind of taking the side of human rights as opposed to Queen Latifah. I don't know that I can keep doing this episode. Okay, keep going.
However, because neither party got significant votes, they're like, it's null and void. We're not dealing with this. They scheduled the runoff for November 21st. Pora activists were arrested in October 2004, and they were released. So they were basically protesting and, like, trying to push for Yushchenko, but apparently Kuchma's personal order was to release them. And so the opposition's like, we are gaining momentum. Yushchenko supporters begin to adopt the color orange as the color of his campaign. And this is where we get the idea of, the Orange Revolution, because let me tell you, there was a shit ton of orange. Like, the main squares in Kiev and other cities had orange flags, and people really protest. This is where we see some labels, such as the oranges, which is Martinis.
Oh, wait! Hold on! Let's see if there's a new app on the whatchamacallit, on the iPhone that, like, reads it for you. I don't know if Ukrainian is in it. Hold on. Is Ukrainian its own language? It's not just Russian? I'm sorry if that's hateful. Okay, but is the word for orange different in both?
I don't know.
Let's find out. What did you say?
Pomovarkanchivi?
Let's see if this is it. Hold on. Now, we're not saying they're the same language. I'm saying some words might be similar, and orange might be one of them. Nope. Not even close. Nope. Nope, wrong. Wrong, everyone. It's not the same. We have no way of knowing how to say these.
No, I don't. I could have Googled.
Yeah.
That was my bad. But, so, there begins to be more protests coming up as the runoff election vote comes in, and official counts begin really having different results from the exit polls. So the exit polls gave Yushchenko an 11% lead, but the official results gave Yankovic a 3% win. So that's kind of a big difference, you know?
So what was the deal? It was the annoying orange? Who did it?
Well, the oranges are like, hey, we were winning by all the exit polls significantly. Like 11% is a pretty big deal. And how did he win by, like the other guy win by 3%? So the government guy. Yankovic's supporters claimed that Yushchenko's connections to Ukrainian media really was the reason why this was going through. They're like, oh, it was the media's fault. But Yushchenko's team like basically started being like, here's all this evidence of electoral fraud in favor of Yankovic, witnessed by not just local, but foreign observers. So they're like, we have this evidence. And they're like,
How did they do it? How did they actually do the election? Do you have any info on that?
So, you know, in some regards, we know that they just stuff ballots. Like, they will literally walk up and just take, instead of having like one, they will fill out a bunch and just shove it in there.
Okay. This is the level of crime I usually associate with older technology, like ballot, like voting fraud. Okay, I'm glad to hear this. Because essentially it's like, if you can get caught, it's just like how do you just like, okay, 1 vote for this guy, 6 votes for this guy. Like, wait, how did you get, like, it's literally the most basic cheating in the world. So I always wonder how people like actually get caught. Cause it's just like, just lying. Like, it's just lying. You know what I mean?
Or even like having people vote multiple times, having the people at like counting the votes, like just get rid of votes. Like there's a bunch of ways to do it. And like, I was like, there's foreign observers. They're not going to lie. Well, I guess they could lie if they were afraid they could get out of the country, but then like be like, hey, no, it was clearly stolen. But yeah, so these are similar to what happened during the first. Yushchenko's campaign publicly called for a protest on election day when, as soon as they found out, like, there were leaflets printed and distributed by the Democratic Initiatives Foundation announcing Yushchenko had won based on the basis of exit polls. So the next day, there are massive protests in cities across Ukraine. The main one is going to be in Kiev's basically Ukraine's Independence Square. I don't even know, and I don't want to butcher it. It's a lot.
It's too late for not butchering.
There's 2 Z's in it, and I the end is Nosti, but I don't know the beginning part, and it scares me. So there were 500,000 participants in that square, just that square, and there's large protests across Ukraine. So we know on November 23rd, they peacefully marched in front of the headquarters of Verkhovna Rada, which is the parliament, wearing orange, carrying orange flags, you know, the color of his campaign. And
all that orange makes me think of is, I don't know if you follow Asian pop groups at all. Your Blackpinks, The Nine. There's always an official color and then an official color for each member. That's all I'm thinking about is pop mega groups from China.
I like it.
Yeah. They have like little light up sticks that you bring to concerts to like show your support for a member. It's on pretty much Lisa from Black. That's how I'm in sure it's.
Yeah, some dude was poisoned to not win the presidency. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, but I feel like we're just gonna disagree on things. Like, yeah, obviously this is somewhat important, but like. I feel like I dropped it, but like you were really mean about Queen Latifah earlier and like and Jimmy Fallon. And I let that go, and now it's like you don't want to talk about Korean pop groups.
Because I still have I'm halfway through.
Oh God! When do we get to the killing?
So at the time, we have the activist Parinska Korolyuka was later bestowed with the Order of Princess Olga. And so, like, there's a lot of really prominent reformist activists out here as well. The day of it, Pora, the group, overtook the management of the protest in Kiev until the end of the demonstration. So, like, they're organized. And remember, it's November in Ukraine. It's fucking freezing out there. Local councils in Kiev, Lviv, and other cities actually passed, with support of their constituents, symbolic refusals to accept the legitimacy of the official election results, and Yushchenko took a symbolic presidential oath. It was in the half-empty parliament chambers. It lacked but it only had his leaning faction, so it's not league. No, and it was really to show that they were not going to accept compromise.
Yeah, I remember thinking at the time, National Treasure, I hope they make a second. I remember when this was happening. That's all I remember not seeing news every day. I was not thinking about the Ukraine. Man, that was that a good movie? And he wasn't the guy from HBO's Game of Thrones was in that, but we didn't know about it. Some people, it's weird. People had already started reading.
And Nicolas Cage could have stolen this election.
Yeah. So we were going through our own thing because we didn't have a Declaration of Independence. That was so scary. It was so scary, guys.
So Yushchenko's, like, some believe that Yushchenko should have taken a more confrontational route rather than having a fake presidential oath, but he's like, it looks like it will lend to legitimacy rather than his rival who tried to gain the president fraud and intimidation. There's also, at this time, in eastern and southern Ukraine, where Yankovic's strongholds are actions leading to the belief that Ukraine is going to divide. They're going to break off based off of. And these are the areas, when you think back to 2011, that were initially taken over by the Russians. So the scale of demonstrations just got bigger and bigger. On some days, they had up to 1 million people in the street. It is believed that a total of 18.4% of Ukrainians have claimed to take part in the Orange Revolution all across the country, which is, for the size of the country, they have millions, like, I don't exact, but it's like, that's like tens of millions who took action.
That's crazy.
Because of this. Yushchenko begins to enter into negotiations with Kuchma in an effort to peacefully resolve the resolution, but they broke up on the 24th. So this is all happening over a couple days, because remember, the runoff election was the 21st, 3 days later. Yankovic was officially certified the victor by the Central Election Commission, which allegedly was involved in the faking of the result. And it was like, apparently there was an illegal computer server to manipulate results. I was just like, damn, you guys aren't playing around.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, was like real tech. Because, like, to me, it just seems like so basic. Just like literally, like, you ever see Gangs in New York? Mm-hmm. And they just like make the people keep voting over and over again. Like,
they shave them.
Yeah, that's like the level of like what I'm always thinking with, because it's just like literally lying. I like that there was some technology.
But you have to remember, it's like a 2004 computer too.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to say December 2004 so I can talk about Fat Albert. That's been my main thing, is waiting to get through the different.
So after the next morning, Yushchenko spoke to his supporters in Kiev, and they were like, let's have a series of mass protests, general strikes, sit-ins to cripple the government and force it to concede. And this is what I give, like, people don't give the, like, Eastern Europeans and, like, the Soviet blocs. They love a good protest and a good strike. And they do very well at them.
I have no idea. But they actually, like, they get, like, big strikes going? That's, like, a thing they're good at?
Yeah, that's, so the 1918 Russian Revolution, I think it was the October Revolution, because there was 2 that year, and they have a different calendar at that point. They, like, there were mass, like, strikes, mass protests from all over sectors of the country because they were starving and they were really losing the war, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? I will eventually cover it. I find that, like, the lead up to the Bolshevik power fascinating, because it, like, could have been stopped so many different ways. And
when that was happening I was just like thinking about how Tarzan of the Apes, okay, but like I want to see a kind of, you know, less action oriented version, but more talking, you know. A Dog's Life was not great, that Charlie Chaplin came out with. You know, Tarzan wasn't too good either. No real winners. I remember thinking.
There wasn't really at all. So Yushchenko announced the creation of the Committee of National Salvation, which would declare a nationwide strike. And in December 2004, the Ukrainian Supreme Court finally broke this political deadlock. They decided that the scale of electoral fraud really made it impossible to establish the election results. Therefore, official results were not valid, and so Yankovic could not get the presidency. They demanded a runoff to be held December 26, 2004. So Christmas, like the day after Christmas, Boxing Day.
Yeah, around when Fat Albert.
That movie was bizarre.
I've never seen it. I always thought the look was cool. I thought they did a good job, like, making those cartoons real.
But now it feels weird because Bill Cosby was
Yeah, of
really
course it feels weird. That's the subtext. We're not talking about that. Kenan Thompson didn't do anything.
No, Kenan Thompson is a gem. So this decision is seen as a victory for Yushchenko's camp. They were against Yankovic, who were like, let's just do an entirely new election instead of a runoff, because
what's the difference?
Clearly he was not. They were probably going to start completely over, where there could be more candidates so they could, like, fix it better, I guess, and get more votes, where Yushchenko would, like, they could probably hopefully get him out. And remember, all the campaigning is how he got poisoned in the first place.
Correlation, not causation. But anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah. So we know earlier that month, Parliament had amended the laws to provide a legal framework for the new round of elections, which were approved in the Constitution, which also implemented political reform, which Kuchma backed as an incumbent. He was like, okay, let's do some compromise between the acting authorities, opposition. This is how pissy Yankovic was. He was like, my victory in the election was, quote, taken away, quote, he's like, I gave up the victory in order to avoid bloodshed. Quote, I did not want mothers to lose their children and wives to lose their husbands. I did not want dead bodies from Kiev to flow down to Dnipro. I did not want power. I did not want to assume power through bloodshed. End quote. You just wanted to steal it. It's fine.
Well, but to a certain extent, that is kind of what, that is kind of like, I mean, it's not like, you could say it like self-righteously, right? But it is also kind of like, yeah, that's the whole deal. Cause, you know what I mean? Like, yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you cause turmoil, you cause, it's like when people are like, oh, I didn't want to cause a fuss. You did, but you caused a, it's fine that you caused a fuss, but that's why is that doesn't make it better that you caused a fuss. Like, you're definitely causing a fuss. It's either fine. The fuss is the fuss either way. You already caused it, so don't act all remorseful now, you know? Yeah. So on December 26th, the revote was held under intense motherfucking scrutiny by local and international observers. The preliminary results announced by the Central Election Committee on December 28th gave Yushchenko and Yankovic. So Yushchenko got 51.99% and Yankovic got 44.2%, which showed plus 5% for Yushchenko and minus 5% for Yankovic compared to... How many millions is the difference? I don't have the millions of number, but it's like pretty significant, you know. That's a lot of... You definitely need a computer. Yeah. You need at least AOL 7. Because right now the population of Ukraine is 40, so it's a significant number of people that it's like were swayed. 5 million to 5 votes? Assuming everybody voted, yeah. But of course, Yankovic's team was like, we're gonna do a legal attack to this election, and they're like, it's Ukraine, like going to the courts and the election commission to complain. However, you know, both are swept aside, no, these don't have merit. January 10th, 2005. Again, remember, we started this in April. The election commission officially declared Yushchenko the winner of the presidential election, with the final results falling within 0.01% of the preliminary ones. So that's pretty fucking accurate. And this would allow for him to become the president of Ukraine. And anything else? He wins. Is there a prize? This is the end of it. Does he get? But he doesn't get the pliers. Just he did this just to be president. Not even a few Xbox Gold points. Just getting nothing. Like a free trial of Netflix. 30 days Netflix free. No, I don't think. Was Netflix a thing? 2004. Would have been close, yeah. It would have been a mail-in thing by then. The DVDs. So he has a very tumultuous couple years of presidency. Their coalition fell apart, and interestingly, he has a political downturn in 2010, and so literally 5 years later, where Yankovic runs again against Yulia Tymoshenko, and so they have another runoff. It goes on, and Yankovic gets presidency, but you see, this is all setting up to the 2011 crisis, because none of the shit had been dealt with that was leading to the problems. They tried to do stuff, but then there was so much political infighting that it basically set up for another revolution, and that is Ukraine's Orange Revolution. Yeah. And speaking of 2010, just so it reminds color orange, tough sacrificing yourself. It's one film that came out that has all of that in. That's 7 hours. Oh my God. Yeah, that's kind of this revolution. It's the 127 hours, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? I think it's the color orange. Someone has to damage themselves to do the right thing, to win. Eat rocks, because rocks are evil, is what that movie's moral is. It's a moralist movie. I feel like we need more stories like 127 hours to really get the world. No reason why. No reason why not. Life goes on. Pretty shit. So, Mike, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you? #cult.org. We need a jingle. I used to have a jingle. I don't like doing plugs. I only do a plug for #cult because it's a good cause. It's about, we're investigating this cult. We're trying to stop cults on the internet in our most loftiest way, stop men abusers on the web, and educate people about cults. But I don't like doing plugs. I think they sound very so I try to it's new to me to be plugging stuff again. You have a jingle you want to write. Because those people are definitely alive. If you were a part of the Orange Revolution, write me a jingle. What else? Trying not to be taken over by Russia. Right, but whatever. That's some of your day. You still have an iPhone and a guitar. Write me a jingle. That's all I'm saying. It's they're not throwing out their guitars and doing that all the time. Or piano. just write me a quick jingle.
I'm sad that you won't be back for the next episode. I've been having a lot of fun doing a lot of bits.
Yes, many.
I'll see you next week, listener, with a new guest.
Hello, all of you fantastic listeners. I'm Erica.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the hosts of Martinis and the Macabre,
a comedy podcast discussing morbid murders.
I was going to try just a nibble.
Do you like true crime?
Killed them and cooked them. Do you wonder about morbid history?
What are you doing with that hammer?
Do you laugh at inappropriate topics?
Open mouth, cut off top of head.
Then we cordially invite you to our cocktail hour, so you too can build up a tolerance for booze and body bags.
You got a body in these? Well, it's not a Friday.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and most other podcast apps by searching Martinis and the Macabre.
And then sit back and laugh at the worst the world has to offer.
Cheers!
Domesticity. We're available on all podcatchers. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to help spread the word, or just force other people to listen to it. Our Facebook and Twitter are at Domestic Podcast, and our Instagram is at the Cult of Domesticity. We also have podcast merch at Threadless. As well, if you want to support us financially or show some appreciation, we have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon, which has some pretty great perks. Any topic suggestions, feel free to email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to stay domestic and cult free.